Thank you very much. Once again, let me welcome you back to this one meritocratic channel of ours. And this is MATRIC+NATED Specialist. Ensure that you are hitting the subscription button and ensure that you are sharing to those who are concerned. And then going to write, and I'm saying to you, good luck on your examination and moving on to grade 11. Please hit the subscription button and also ensure that you are sharing to those who are concerned. Okay, here we are in a continuation question of this 2.2, of which we are going to study the diagram showing the possible evolutionary relationship amongst groups of organisms. Remember that we are saying that we derive from different now organism, or we derive from different ancestors, but we can see that over the years that our relationship as a possible terms of 700 millions of years ago, and then we had a line, and then we can see that this is a species on its own, and then we are saying that that is bacteria up until to the present generation. And then we can see again, we've got the protista, the protozoa, and the fungi, which they derive from the common ancestor, but now their lineage has derived from this common ancestor, leading to different families. So you can see also here, after the algae and the fungi have developed, the fungi and the algae have developed coming from the same common ancestor, but the defense now, it is here, it derives from maybe 500 millions of years ago, and it is going on to defense standard. So you can see in the line family of defense, there comes the conifers. So they derive from the flowering. So you can see that all these they derive from the common ancestor, but they are now different in terms of their organisms, up until to the last line now of the fishes, the anthropodium, the reptile, the birds, and the mammals. But I want you to check here the lineages. Where do they derive from? So the fish is deriving from the same ancestor, but you can see that there are different varieties that derive from the fishes there. All right. So this is the relationship that we are talking about. All right. And then according how many millions years ago did the conifers evolve? So we are saying that is 3. We go back to our graph. We are going to check the conifers, and then we are seeing that this is the conifers. It means this is the present generation of the conifers, but where do they derive from? They derive from this family, which is equivalent to 300 of millions of years ago. So that is the answer. All right. And then if ever we are moving on, we have to see that in B, which were the first organisms that lived on Earth. We are saying that is bacteria. How can we see that? And we can see that when the Earth started some 700 of years ago, there's one species which originated, and it is that of and ensure that the first now species to live, it is what is a bacteria, followed by the protocolisia, followed by the fungi, followed by the algae, followed by the ferns. So we can see that this is according to their chronological order. All right. And then they say, from which groups of organisms did the reptiles evolve? So we are saying from the amphibians. So we are going to see the reptiles top. We can check that the reptiles in this instant here are the reptiles here. And the question, it says, where do they derive from? They derive from this family. What is this particular family that they derive from? It is the amphibians. So after the amphibians, their lineage is developed, which is now evolved to a reptile. So the evolution, it is gradually taking place. So the other question in number D, they say which is the most recent group of animals to evolve. That is the bird. The keyword there is recent. Something that has been happening recent is something that has happened right now, and it is the latest. If I can ask you which phone it is the latest, you can see that this is the bird going to the mammals. So we are saying that that can be the answer, the possible answer, mammals and the birds, they are there. All right. And then if ever we are moving on again, they say in number E, give one reason why the mammals are more closely related than birds with the amphipodia. So the reason is that the mammals, they share a common ancestor with the birds than with the amphipodians. That it is stipulated also in the graph that we have discussed. All right. And then if ever we are moving on again, we can see that in 2.3, we are going to study The food web, it tells us about, to say, you can see that the hawk there, it means the hawk would feed on what? On the finch first. Can you see the finch? On the rabbit. And then it would also feed on the what? On the thrush. So it means the hawk is going to eat these, and then they are going to transfer energy to these particular hawks. So can you see that the transfer of energy is taking place? So what do we say about the snake? We say that the snake now, it can transfer the energy to a what? To an owl. It means the owl will eat a snake, and then the snake would eat a mouse in this instinct. So a mouse would transfer the energy to a snake. And then what about an owl? An owl now, it is eaten first by, or the owl, it is eaten by the snake. And then we are saying that the owl would feed on the mouse. So this is the transfer of the what? Of the energy from one organism to the other. What is eating what, in simple terms? So we are seeing that we've got the thrush. The thrush would eat a snail, and this particular snail, it would be eaten by the thrush, and the thrush would be eaten by the hawk. So the lettuce there, it would transfer energy because of it's eaten by the snail. So that is the transfer of energy. So we are saying the rabbit would also eat the what? The lettuce would feed on the lettuce, and then it would also feed on the grass. So that is what we are talking about the this organ that we can sustain energy. All right. And then if ever we are moving on again, you can see that we've got a question in 2.3.1. Explain what is the producer. We are saying that is an organism or a plant that makes food out of photosynthesis. That is the producer. And then in 3.2, in 2.3.2, what do flow from one organism to the other? That is the answer. And then if ever we are moving on in 2.3.3, from the above a food web, single out one food chain with our tropic levels. Write out this food chain will transfer energy to the mouse will transfer energy to the snake, and the snake will transfer energy to the birds. 4, it says give the name of one organism that is found in energy. That is the grass, is a lettuce. Again, because of they are not eat, they cannot eat anything apart from the photosynthesis. And 2.3.5, give the name of two secondary carnivores. We are saying that is a hawk and a owl. If ever we are moving on in 2.3.6, explain why a food web is more single, a food chain. So we are saying that number one, ecosystem can still sustain itself over a long period of time, and the balanced ecosystem. Then you are getting your marks. All right. See that we are having some other questions in this instinct. So if ever we can see, this is 2.4. So in 2.4, you can see that they say the statement, the following table shows the numbers of organisms in each tropic level around the baobab tree. So this is the tropical level of the baobab tree, which the numbers of organisms is 1 on this area. The caterpillar, there are 220,000. And then the birds, there are only 30 birds. The snakes, there are only 3. And then in this instinct, after given this scenario, as to represent the this habitat. And then the other question, it is 2.4.2 suggests a large difference between marine and the secondary consumers. So we want the pyramid. The keyword there, it is indeed the pyramid. The pyramid. So the pyramid, we can see that it is drawn in this manner. And then we've got the snakes, which they are. We've got the they are in the list number 1. And the caterpillars, there are many. The birds now on number 3 and number 4. The snakes, which can be presented. So we are saying that when you are getting the mark, you must represent a caption. And then here, number 2, you are going to numbers. In terms of the numbers, you are going to get 3 marks. All of the organisms are correctly placed. And then 2 marks for 2 organisms marks. So this is the caption that is represented, the pyramid of numbers. All right. And the reason is that why there's more of the primary than the secondary consumer. It is because primary consumer, which indeed here they are caterpillars, they are small as compared to birds. So that it changes, a change of the season may result in large numbers of the caterpillar, then you are going to get 2 marks. Because of the change of seasons, it brings caterpillars over a certain jurisdiction, which is also known as the area. All right. And then if ever we are moving on, and they say in 2.5 here, complete the following questions on ecotourism. We need to understand first what is an ecotourism. It is when people travel to our own country to see these things that would attract them, and then they would boost our economy in this instinct. And then in 2.5.1, they say explain what is ecotourism for 2 marks and list the benefits of ecotourism. And number B, the negative impacts of the ecotourism. All right. And then we must have to understand that the ecotourism here, it is a form of tourism in 2.5.1. It is a form of tourism where people enjoy the natural beauty of the area and activities they can do there. That is for 2 marks. When people, they come from their own country to check our area. And then A, the benefits of the ecotourism in 2.5.2a, they create job opportunities which can be directly proportional to income to the economy or to the community. Number 2, the business opportunities are created. Enjoyment of natural beauty, going to enjoy themselves for leisure. This can bring money for conservation programs. Those are the benefits. And then the negative impacts is that exploitation of local people, and then the negative impact on the environment, that of some species that they are important to our area. All right. And then if ever we are moving on again, and we can see that we've got some other questions. Here we are in 2.5.3, and then the statement, it reads as follows. You are the manager of an ecotourism site. Mention 2 rules or principles that you set to guide your tourists at your site. And then in 2.5.4, name 2 recognized biodiversity hotspots in South Africa that we have studied. So hotspot, the principles, it talks about the image of the company, what principles would you do? And then the hotspot of biodiversity, where the biodiversity can be more, that is the hotspot. Okay. And then if we can see that we are saying that the answer there, it do not pick the guide, it will be do not pick fruits and plants, do not touch wild animals, do not feed animals, no fires are allowed, and no litter. That can be a maximum of 2 marks. And in 2.5.4, we are studying the hotspot now, where is happening the most in terms of activities in South Africa of the ecotourism. Number 1, we are having the Cape Florist region. Number 2, the succulent Karoo and the Namakaru. And number 3, we've got the Maputa land, which is the Pondo land. That is indeed for a succession of 2 marks that you can have. Referring to the textbooks and the notes that we have been given in class, they play an important role in this. We are moving on again. We can see that we are having some other questions, and then these particular questions, they can show us a relevancy of what is it right. And then if ever we are moving on, we can see that we are having a question 3 in this instinct. And then this is the question 3, which is one of the last questions that we must cover. All right. At 3.1, the statement, it reads as follows. A group of grade 10 learners carried out an investigation to determine the heart rate of 3 different people at a 5 minutes interval. So we are saying the heart rate was taken in terms of 5 minutes intervals. So we can see that this is the beat that have lasted. We've got 3 persons that we have taken, person A, person B, and person C. So we are saying in this instinct, for 0 minutes, person A had 78, person B had 76, and person C had 155. After 5 minutes intervals, after 10 minutes, 76, 68, the same, and up until to the 25 minutes of the intervals between 3 people. And then if ever we are seeing that, they say state 3.1.1 state 2 learning steps that learners will consider when carrying out the investigation. And then in 3.1.2, list 2 variables that learners should keep constant in order to ensure the validity. So validity shows the valid results. And then we want things that the learners must consider this investigation. All right. And then if ever we are moving on 3.1.1, they must, learners in 3.1.1, they must decide on the numbers of people to investigate. Number two, decide on the date, time, place to carry out the investigation. They must collect all the apparatus, which are instruments that are used to conduct this investigation. They must decide on how to record or collect the data, and they must decide who would result in for 2 marks. And what is it that they should keep constant to increase the validity of this? Learners must be of the same age group. Number two, the same gender must be taken into consideration. They must be carried out at the same time. Same person must record these particular results in 3.1.2. All right. And then if ever we are moving other questions, which they need now our attention, we are moving on in 3.1.3. In this instance, they say which person is involved in a physical activity during the entire 25 minutes, and then you give the reason for the answer. All right. So if ever we are going on again, we can see that this person C, that this number C, that is involved in heart rate is very high. So how can we see that this number C? If ever we are going to on what we have transpired, what we have singled on, you can see that he has the highest now breathing. In 3.1.4, which person is sleeping and appears to be entering an unpleasant dream? You need to explain your answer. And then in 3.1.5, on a single system of axes, plot a line graph using the information from the SAR table for the person of A and B only. And you label this line graph. This is the line graph. All right. And then we can see that if ever we are moving on again, we are saying that the sleeping there is person B. Why we are saying that? We are saying in the first 10 minutes, the heartbeat was constant low. It was 68 beats per minute. Thereafter, it starts to increase as the person enters the unpleasant dream. So he starts to dilate the heart very fast. In 3. I give the line graph a caption, which is the heading, and the double line graph, because of his person B and person C, they should be double. They should be x-axis and y-axis labeled. X-axis and y-axis, the scale in terms of the number, and then label each line of the graph, then get your mark. Graph whereby I want to show you very well how can you draw the graph. But you can see that here we are having what you call a caption. This is the line graph showing the heart rate of 2 people for a period of 25 minutes period. All right. Remember, those people, they are B and C. All right. And then if ever we are moving on again, what we need to understand is for person A, we need to give it a mark. And then for person B again, we need to give a mark. And then on x-axis, we are having the time. This is the x-axis. We are having the time. And then y-axis, here we are having that in the intervals of 0 minutes, they are 70 and 80. For 5 minutes is 68 and 72. You have loaded the graph for 10 minutes is 68 and 60. And then for 50 minutes is 74 and 76. And then for 20 minutes, both 78. And then for 25 minutes, 84 and 87. Then you get your good marks there. All right. And then if ever we are moving on again, and it was asking us very well to write those plot very well, very clearly. Okay. And then if ever we are moving on again, we can see that we are having some other question where it is 3.2. And then in 3.2, it says tabulate now, tabulate 2 structural differences between the arteries and the veins. So remember that the way tabulate, it says you must put it in the table format. All right. And then if ever we are in 3.2, this is the answer of arteries, and then we've got the veins. So the arteries, the structural differences, they have the smaller lumen. They are arteries, they've got thicker muscular wall, and arteries, the halves are absent. Valves, they are absent. They don't have the valves. Why the veins? They've got large lumen, they've got thin muscular wall, and they have the valves, they are present. So remember that you are also drawing or get 1 mark for that. You need to ensure that you are getting this right, because of it is very, very easy and not challenging. All right. And now we are say study the diagram A and diagram B. Diagram B is in the diagram A, and the diagram is the correlate marks. They say now in the diagram A is a traditional fossil. In 3.2, why are they saying it is a traditional fossil? All right. And then we can have to say that number one, the skull and the teeth and the jaw more similar to the dinosaurs, or it has three claws on the end of the bones of each, with more similar to the dinosaurs, and it has feathers more. It has three holes and one backward pinpointing to, and then that is what we can see visually. And then if ever we are moving 3.3.3, describe how the fossilized in 4.3.3, we can see that this is the answer. And then we can say that number one, the organisms have died next to the flat plain or near the water. The sediments, they piled up over the organisms, including oxygen flow. Soft parts started to decay. Over time, the minerals seeped into the bones, replacing the organic part. So in form, it is accepted. We can see that we are having some other questions. They say in 3.3.4, explain why organism B is called a living fossil. Let us check organism B here. This is the organism B. On diagram B, they say it is a living. Now, of course, if ever we are moving on again, we can see that the issue of the, all right. So in 3.4, we are saying it was a thought to be extinct long time ago, but they changed over the long period of time. And then you are having, then if ever we are moving on again, we can see that we are having the last question, which indeed we can try to answer before we can leave this. All right. And then if ever we are moving in question 3, continuity 3.4, and then in this instinct, we are given 3.4 to say, study the table below that shows the decay of the carbon over carbon 14 over time, and answer the questions that follows. All right. So what you need here, you need to come again with the calculator in order to answer the questions directly here. Okay. And then we are saying that this is the decay of a carbon 14. And then we've got the numbers of half-lived elapsed. We are having the percentages of the original carbon 14 that is remaining. Okay. And then they say here in 3.4, these particular methods of the fossil calculate the value of X and 22. Okay, 3.4.1 and then 3.4.2. So that is called the radiometric dating, or the relative dating. So what is it? The X, it is 28,650 years, and the Y, it is 3.12%. Okay, you just minus there, and then you get the answer. Okay, and then if ever we are moving on again, we can see that we've got some other questions which they need now our attention. And then in this instinct, the question that has to come there, they say, explain why it would not be possible to date a fossil which existed 8 carbon 14, and give 2 reasons why there are gaps in the fossil records. All right, those are the last 2 questions, and then you must understand this question very well. Okay, and then here we are having the answers, and then we are saying after 14 remaining in the fossils, and in 3.4 of I, they become fossilized. Some fossils might not be found yet. And lastly, many fossils are destroyed by human activities or by natural disasters. Thank you much for letting your time not be wasted. Good luck on your examination. And